Let me introduce to you the cause for celebration this evening and cause for reflection. Rabbi Donna Berman has been with Charter Oak this year, now 20 years. And she felt that this would be a great opportunity for us to talk about her time here. And she's very modest. Maybe you can get her to talk about some of her achievements here, some of the challenges that she's faced. And of course, I think we're going to be wanting to talk about what the plans are for the future. So I am going to start the proceedings with actually asking Donna what Donna was doing before Charter Oak Cultural Center and what led her to the doors. I don't know if we want to talk about your rabbinic studies or what led you to Hartford. You're a New Yorker, right?
I am a New Yorker, yes.
And so
what led you tell from my dropped R's?
Yeah, that could be a Boston thing too.
Could be a Boston thing too. Well, first of all, I want to say thank you everybody for coming. It's really great to see you, and not just for coming tonight, but for coming for 20 years, and some of you for more than 20 years, for your support and your love and your support of the Charter Oak Cultural Center. We couldn't do the things that we did and do without you. So I was born in a log cabin. Oh no, that's Abraham Lincoln.
Boo.
Boo. I am from New York. I'm from Queens, and I went to Jamaica High School, and I knew I wanted to be a rabbi since I was 9 years old. And I was very influenced by, how much time do we have? I was very influenced by my brother, who's 7 years older than I am, and was very involved in the anti-war movement and civil rights movement. And so I really, and in the synagogue I grew up in, there was a focus on social justice. And in those days, there was a thing called prophetic Judaism. And it was, the basic philosophy was, yes, you know, you want to observe the holidays and Shabbat and you want to do all those things, but the most important thing is what kind of person you are and how much you work for justice. And it was a very exciting time. And that really took that to heart. So, and then I just knew I wanted to be a rabbi, you know, as a philosophy major in college, went to rabbinic school right after college. And
where did you go to college?
I went to Drew University as an undergraduate, and then I returned there for graduate school. And so I went to rabbinic school, spent my first year in Jerusalem, as everybody does. I was in rabbinic school in New York. And while I was in rabbinic school, I had this amazing opportunity to be a music teacher. So I play the guitar and try to sing anyway. And at Port Jewish Center in Port Washington, New York. And I became the music teacher there. And then they wanted me to come and be their student rabbi. But in the meantime, I actually was the assistant Hillel director at Princeton. And the rabbinic school said that, well, that could satisfy the requirement to have a congregation. And then at the end of my 2 years at Princeton, they said, no, we really want you to have a congregation. So, but it's not in the rabbinic students' ability to decide what congregation they're going to go to. It's a lottery. And all the rabbinic students pick a number. And then, you know, if you're number one, you get to pick from all of the array of congregations that are available to student rabbis. Or if you pick two, or you pick three, whatever's left, you get. And everybody wanted Port Jewish Center in Port Washington. That was the number one pick. And that was where I wanted to go. And one of my best friends picked one, and I picked two. And he was, I was just having lunch with him a few weeks ago, and I said to him, it was one of the nicest things anyone's ever done for me. He knew I wanted to go to Port Jewish Center, and so he picked a congregation in Elmhurst, Queens. And I got to go to Port Jewish Center, and I was there for 12 years. And that was really, really one of the blessings of my life. And frankly, when I left there, I never thought that I would have that kind of joy from a job again. And I went back to Drew, got my doctorate. Took a little longer than that sentence.
Your doctorate is in
religion and social ethics. And by the way, when I was at Port Jewish Center, we did a lot of work in the arts. We a lot of our worship was really creative and included dance and music, all kinds of good stuff. And we did a lot of social justice work. And then I went to Drew. And then when I got my degree, I kind of was contemplating life and watching the morning glories grow. And then I ended up at Charter Oak Cultural Center.
So just in terms of your rabbinic studies, was this at a time when women were really starting to head into that and were being allowed to? I don't know much about Jewish history in regards to when women started becoming rabbis. Was this, were you part of a wave of upstarts, or was this something this was already in the works?
Well, the first woman was ordained in 1970. First of all, I am so old. I always say this to people, but it's really true. Moses was in my rabbinic class. So in 1972, the first woman was ordained, and I was ordained in 1982. So it was only 10 years later. So by the time we were ordained, I think there were maybe 6 women rabbis, something like that.
Wow.
And then our class had we had many. So, but I was within, I think I was the 47th woman to be ordained or something like that.
And so growing up as a child, that was not something that seemed like it would be on the table for you then. Did you aspire to that and feel like it wasn't something that was available to you, or?
Well, it's interesting because, I grew up, I was a kid I was born in 1956. I was a kid in the 60s. And so then you have this, the start of the second wave of feminism. I feel like my beginning early life was 1950s and the approach to women. And then as the 60s emerged, this whole other world. And so I kind of straddle both worlds. But I was very lucky in that my father always said to me, you can be anything you want to be. And so I would go to the synagogue, and I really felt very safe there. I had a difficult childhood, and most of us have, but in particular because there was a lot of racial tension in the school that I went to, in the junior high I went to, and it was a really difficult time because I really was very committed, even as a young person, to social and racial justice. But people were angry, and there was a lot of racial tension in the school. And so, and there was some violence, which I experienced. And so that my real safe place was the synagogue. And because in the synagogue, we were talking about justice, because again, this prophetic Judaism thing, we were talking about justice. And so I thought to myself, this is where I want to be for my life. I want to be in the synagogue. Now, my brother, who I told you is 7 years older than I am, his experience was completely different. He thought that, being in anything related to the synagogue and anything related to Judaism was, in those days they call it selling out. It was bourgeois. It was not. And to me, it was the way to it was a glimpse of a better world. And so that's what I want to do. And so at 9 years old, I was like, I want to live here, and I want to be a rabbi. This is what I want to do.
Interesting.
No,
you're saying that your father said you could be anything you want to be. I told my father that I wanted to be either a doctor or a cat. And he was not willing to pay for medical school or cat school. So here I am. Cat
school could be very expensive.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think we all know that.
So now you said you ended up, and then you went to Charter Oak, but there was a Charter Oak there before you got there. and I would love to hear about your first impressions of it. I don't know who was running it before or how it was being operated. If you were you the first executive director?
Does it really matter what went before? No, I'm kidding.
Of course, I'm talking about BCE.
Exactly right. Wait, I want to tell you something. I forgot something. After I left Port Jewish Center, the reason I left was because I wanted to write books about Jewish feminist theology, and I went to Yale Divinity School, and then I went to Drew. So that's what I did. But once I got my doctorate, I was like, okay, what am I going to do now? And I moved to Connecticut with my then partner, and I was looking for a job. I just got this doctor. I was looking for a job, and I would go every day. I had a little briefcase, and I'd get all dressed up. I literally forgot I didn't have a job. Like I wasn't getting paid for these lunches. I was like, yeah, I got a job. But yeah. So anyway, Charter Oak was basically they had recently had a flood. It smelled really bad. There was no carpeting on the floor because they had to lift it up and take it up. And there was no programming. Now, that is not to say, I was only kidding before, I stand on the shoulders of many very wonderful executive directors, very creative people. It's just that there was this gap. The executive director before me had been gone for a while. There was an interim director or somebody who was going to stay for a while, but then she didn't. She stayed for 6 months, and the place was really dormant. So the board in April of 2001 decided that they were going to just have the Charter Oak would be a rental space, and they called it, and it's kind of clever, they called it the building as program. So they were going to bring, people in, but meanwhile, it was a smelly building without a carpet, and it wasn't the most attractive place in the world. So, and then by happenstance, which sometime I could tell you tonight, depends on how much time we have, but because I don't want this to go on to my 21st anniversary, but by happenstance, and I say happenstance, but I'm a rabbi. I believe it was the hand of God. I ended up at Charter Oak for an interview. They weren't even looking for somebody. And I had lunch with the acting managing director and a board member. And they were not looking for an executive director. They had no money. And
so that hasn't changed.
I was going to say, yeah, but now we're rolling in dough. So yeah. So, it was really, so we had lunch. And then he called me up, the acting managing director called me up, and he said, what would it take for you to come to Charter Oak? And they were actually looking for an office manager. And I said, is an office manager? And he said, no, as the executive director. And I was like, what? But this is the thing. So I went, because they had that director for just a few months, and they did, and they wanted to make sure that hadn't worked out. So they really had been burnt, and they wanted to make sure that I was the right person. I went through 7 interviews, literally 7 interviews. I had one outfit. I wore the same outfit to every interview, but different people were at these different interviews. And I remember the last interview I went to, the woman who was going to drive me to that interview is actually with Naomi Klein at the shipbuilding, Phoenix. It was at Phoenix.
Yes.
The Phoenix building. And whoever came to drive me there said to me, "That's a very nice outfit." So this is the 7th time I've worn it.
It's starting to smell like the building.
Yeah, it's actually this. I'm wearing the same thing. But anyway, so I went on a Friday. This was the last interview. And by the way, and I don't know why, but the board asked me for 9 references. I don't know why, not 10. They asked me for 9. And I remember saying to Jack Waggett, who's a dear, dear friend. He was the managing director. He's the one who hired me. I said to him, do you know that? I said, sure, 9 references. Do you happen to know the number of Rent-A-Reference? Because who knows 9 people? Yeah. So I went for this interview, and it was the 7th interview, and it was a Friday. And this is with the full board. I had gone with all kinds of different people. And I went home and so I left there about 5 o'clock. About 7 o'clock, I get a phone call and says, and it's the president of the board, Raymond Baker at the time. And he said, we'd like to offer you this job. And I was just about to say, yes, I mean, I wanted this job, but I heard my father's voice saying to me, oh, you never just take a job. You can't just do that. You got to play a little hard to get. So I said, I'll let you know Tuesday. For whatever reason, I didn't say Monday. I said Tuesday. I don't know why. And Tuesday was 9/11.
Wow. And so obviously you took the job, but how did that paint the starting of your career at Charter Oak?
Well, at that point, and by the way, I left a message that day on the Charter Oak phone, and I said, I don't want today to be the day that goes down in history as the day I accepted this job. I'll call you back tomorrow. Well, everybody was just giving money to the arts after 9/11. That was a priority. Mm-hmm. It was hard. I mean, it was.
Yeah, but as a New Yorker, you're this is your home. That's your home, and it was obviously something that hit all Americans in such a devastating way. But as a New Yorker, and suddenly you're starting in a new home right at that moment, right? So. And I think, this is one of the things that's interesting about Charter Oak is how it reflects back what's going on in the world, like with a conversation on critical race theory, or, you're having a dialogue with the community. So what how did that affect, or did it affect the beginning of how you started your work at Charter Oak? And it's okay to say if it didn't, but.
Well, no, it did. I knew that it was really important from the beginning. I knew that I wanted to. That it was important to do the work of social justice through the arts, and really that was something we had explored at Port Jewish Center. And so one of the first things we did was start a program called Learning to Repair the World. And it was Muslim Jewish, remember, it really Islamophobia was going crazy. It was just prejudice against the Muslim community was just, off the charts after 9/11. And so we decided to start a program, Learning to Repair the World. So it was Jewish, Christian, and Muslim 5th and 6th graders, and coming together and doing social justice projects together, having speakers come in, talking about different social justice issues in Hartford, and learning about each other. And then it culminated, it was like a 10-week, every Sunday for 10, or every once a month on a Sunday for 10 months, I think. And then at the end, there was a big dinner, and people were invited to wear their, any kind of religious or cultural garb, and they would bring, food from their culture, and we'd share this big dinner, and then the kids would talk about the projects they had done. So that was a real direct line from, 9/11 to what we were doing. But the world was really...
The social justice component of the work that Charter Oak does, that was not part of the original mission of the organization. Because it maybe for some of the viewers, they're not completely familiar with the history of how Charter Oak came into being as an entity, because it was obviously built as a synagogue and then was closed when the congregation moved to West Hartford. And it was, I believe, up for demolition at a certain point, and the building was saved by some concerned citizens. And so my recollection is that that obviously tying into the Jewish history of the building is very important. But what were the kind of marching orders from the beginning as far as the people who saved it from from demolition and had it restored. What was the plan for the building, and then how did that change with you, or how did it grow?
Charter Oak, the birthing process is so painful, and Charter Oak has had many
I
births.
actually have no idea how painful it is.
Charter Oak has had many births, and it took a piece of legislation what's colloquially called the Freedom of Religion Act that was passed in 1853. So they had to get permission to build a synagogue. So this is the first synagogue in Connecticut. So that was not easy. It was the Jewish community, they had a building, but they wanted to build a building. So again, that was hard. And then they COTRA, the Charter Oak Temple Restoration Association, saved the building from demolition. You're exactly right, in the 70s, and worked really, really hard. They had to raise $750,000, which is a ton of money in the 70s, to save this building. And the building was really falling apart. And it was kind of like, be careful what you wish for. They saved it, but it was a mess. And then they had to raise money to renovate it. And so they were very courageous. And Elliot Ginsberg was one of the people who led that initiative. And, he passed away recently, and we think of him with so much love and respect. And he was one of the people who really, really was committed to it. And when you ask that question, what was the attitude? I mean, I think Elliot was, they kind of didn't know. They really were kind of like Paula Freire says, you make the road by walking. They knew they had to save the building. They knew it was a gem. It was going to be made into like condos or a McDonald's or a parking lot. So they knew the building was sacred and they needed to save it. And then it was like, okay, what are we going to do now? So it became a multicultural art center because really the Jewish community was not in Hartford anymore. And it was betwixt and between, it wasn't really a Jewish institution. It's going to be a multicultural center. Who's going to support this? And it really always kind of held on, by its fingernails. And so it had its ups and downs and its fluctuations, but again, a birth and a rebirth and a rebirth and a rebirth. And then when I came, it had been kind of stagnant for a while. Nothing had been going on there. There had been one, in the year before I got there had been one exhibit in the gallery and some rental things. So what I did was, again, you make the road by walking. I was like, you know what? I have a friend who plays the kazoo. I'm going to have a friend who plays the kazoo come, and we're going to tell artists they can come in the gallery. And we made noise. And then we made a newsletter about the noise. There really wasn't much going on, but we made it look like there was. And then when you make it look like there is, all of a sudden it is. And I have to say, actually, there have been many, many, many miracles in these 20 years. And one of the miracles is that we were able to do that, and that we survived, and that we flourished. And the people on this Zoom tonight, and the people out in the ether, and all the people who have supported us and believed in us. And even when it was like, we have the craziest business model. We have an art institute for kids, 1,000 kids, and it's completely free. For our performances and stuff, we never turn anybody away who can't afford a ticket. We have 3 programs for the homeless community. They're all free. And how did we survive? I don't know. How did I come to Charter Oak? Hand of God. How did we survive? Hand of God, hand and hearts of the people who are here tonight, and the people who have supported us all these years. I mean, it's just a miracle.
So let's talk about some of those initiatives that you just touched on. I think it's fair to say that the Youth Arts Institute is the single largest program of Charter Oak, and in terms of just the scope of it and the amount of people employed by it and the number of kids that you reach. So, and shout out to Susan Mazer, who I know is watching and does yeoman's work in that program. So how did that get started?
Well, I want to just echo what you're saying. Susan Mazer, I mean, she's a former dean for 17 years at the Hartford Conservatory. And what she has created in our Youth Arts Institute is just, it's so magnificent and so supportive of the kids and the families. And she goes above and beyond all the time. And Lori Leader is our managing director. And, you know, I couldn't put one foot in front of the other without her. So this is how something like Charter Oak flourishes, like the hard work and the dedication of people like Susan and Lori. So this is how it started. Like literally my first year, I said, well, we want to do stuff for youth. And I put up a sign, and we have a sandwich sign. We have the same sandwich sign 20 years later. It looks better than I do, by the way. And on the sign, it said Charter Oak in 3D, dancing, drawing, and drumming. And we hired 3 teachers, and we had 4 students show up. And I was like, okay, I'm not going to get discouraged. I'm going to learn from this. Like, what are we missing? So this, I was involved with SysCon, which is the NRZ, the Neighborhood Revitalization Zone in our area. And I went to a meeting, and at the meeting, this minister said, you know, the kids in the neighborhood want to learn to dance like Jennifer Lopez. And I was like, that's it. I went over to him afterwards. I said, come to Charter Oak. We'll teach the kids how to dance like Jennifer Lopez. I'm like, I have no idea what I'm talking about. So he has a little van, but I knew there was a wonderful teacher named Olivia Davis, and she was in those days, it's so long ago, Dance Connecticut. Remember Dance Connecticut?
Yeah.
And she had the youth program there. And I went to her and I said, I know you're really busy with Dance Connecticut, but is there a day of the week when you could come to Charter Oak? She said, I could come on Saturdays. I said, okay, how much would you charge? She said $100 for a session. I was like, okay, let's do 6 sessions, because we didn't have any money. When I came to Charter Oak, our budget was $140,000, which in that building is I always say this, but it's like turning the lights on twice. I mean, it's a very expensive building to run. So I was like, I'm going to take $600 and we're going to do this. This is one of the most glorious moments I've had at Charter Oak. I'm really glad you brought this up. So the kids arrived with the minister in this van, and it's hard on Zoom, but it was a February morning. It was cold outside. They come in and their body language is, like this. And they had been watching TV and they were eating cereal, and there was nothing to do in our neighborhood, especially in the wintertime, couldn't go outside. And the minister was saying that to me, and they came in and they went on the dance floor, and Olivia said to them, I want you to turn to the person next to you and acknowledge the peace of God that's in them, whether you bow or you take their hand if they allow you to, or you hug them if they allow you to, very respectful. And these kids did that. They started standing up a little straighter, and she put on, and we have a very good sound system in the sanctuary, and she put on, I don't even know who sings it, but that song, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. I'll never forget it. And she put it on, and she had them twirling, and these kids came alive. It was 18 kids. So we'd gone from 4 to 18. And we had gotten them cookies and milk and stuff. And the minister said they didn't have breakfast, really. They had cereal. So, and we don't know what they were going to have lunch. So from then on, we gave them sandwiches. We gave them sandwiches to take home to their siblings. And, when they had juice, and they had all kinds of, healthy stuff. And I thought to myself, oh my God, in 6 weeks, how am I going to tell these kids that it's over? So I went to lunch with Alan Lazowski. I didn't know him. And I just met him, and I was telling him this story, and he said, I don't know, how much do you need for the rest of the year? And I told him, and he said, here. And that was the beginning of our Youth Arts Institute.
Amazing. And now you serve 1,000 kids annually.
Yeah, and now we bought the building next door, and we're at Charter Oak on site, and then we have usually seven sites throughout the city where we provide arts and a really great arts education like we do at Charter Oak. But at Charter Oak, we have about 250 kids. But with this new building, we're going to be able to double that number to 500.
Which we're going to talk about in a moment. We don't want to jump the gun here. So let's talk about the BOTS program and how that came to be and how it's grown.
So we had an intern, and a summer intern named Ethan Burke, and he went to the city while he was on one weekend when he was interning with us. He was about 20 years old, and he came back and he said, you know, I saw this guy slumped over a pot of flowers, and clearly he was in need. And I was thinking to myself, what if that pot had vegetables in it? It's like, oh my God. Okay, so we Googled it. We tried to see if anybody was doing this around the country. We found that somebody was doing something like that in England. It was a sustainability project. It wasn't really to necessarily feed homeless people or people in need. And so we started what we call, so we already had Beat of the Street, the street paper that's written by people in the homeless community and their allies. So it's called, Beat of the Street BOTS. And so we said, well, let's start BOTS pots. And so we'll put some pots on the street, and we'll put organic vegetables in them, and we'll hire and train people experiencing homelessness. And then anybody in need can pick the vegetables. So, and that grew, and eventually Whole Foods became a sponsor. And so now we have, our goal is to put at least one pot on every street in Hartford. We're far from that goal, but they're popping up all over the place. And so, they do several things. They provide food. They remind us all to eat in a more healthy way. They remind us that there are those of us who are not in need, that there are people in need. They beautify the streets of Hartford. But most importantly, again, they provide food for people, because people can just, pick a cucumber or beans or lettuce or whatever. And it provides, jobs. But the other thing is we have artists who paint the pots. So we always say it's food, jobs, and art for Hartford.
And another less visible thing is the Center for Creative Learning.
Yeah, which is a school for people experiencing homelessness. And each class is 8 classroom hours. And when people complete 12 courses, which would be 96 classroom hours, they graduate from the BOTS Center for Creative Learning. And they're given a laptop, which is also part of Elliot Ginsberg and his wife, Lori, part of what they have done for Charter Oak. And we give everybody a laptop, and then they're eligible for a full scholarship to Goodwin University.
Which is just mind-blowing. It's just mind-blowing. Not just that this is available to them at no cost, but the generosity of the people who make it happen. And I know I'm going to make it awkward for just a minute. I know that much of that has to do with the charming person sitting across the table and asking them. And that's to your credit, is that your passion for what you do at Charter Oak is so evident and so infectious, and your commitment to the work of social justice through the arts, and also the commitment to celebrating Jewish arts and culture through Charter Oak, I think is the reason that people are so generous. And that may be a good segue to talk about something that's happening on December 13th. I know people didn't wander in to hear a commercial, but we're going to give them a commercial, right?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. December 13th, we thought we were going to have an in-person gala on October 21st at the Marriott. And then we thought better of it. In the summer it looked good. And then all of a sudden, so we are doing, so last year we did 2 virtual galas. And this year we decided, well, instead of just pre-recording, and this was Jacques' idea. Jacques, by the way, is a dear member of the Charter Oak family, and he works with Buzz Engine, which is a marketing company in Hartford, and they do, all of our constant contact. This is the genius of Jacques. And so Jacques said to me, we shouldn't just pre-record this one. We should actually have some live stream. So I am going to be at Charter Oak. It's kind of like the Thanksgiving Day parade now that I think about it. I'm going to be at Charter Oak with our honorees, with our 3 honorees, Scott O'Keefe and Rasha Agrawal and Julio Concepcion, and their families and friends. And we're going to be broadcasting from Charter Oak. And if you come to the gala, there are different levels, but if you get the VIP package, we literally are going to deliver dinner to your house. And we really want you to invite your friends over, and they get dinner, and you can have a viewing party, kind of like when, I don't know, Rhoda married somebody on the Mary Tyler Moore Show, and people got dressed up and watched her get married. So it's kind of like that, but without Rhoda and without the wedding. Other than that, it's perfect.
So if I just put in the link, the link to the gala website, and we encourage you all to go there. Again, there's a ticket that will allow you to have dinner fully prepared by Russell's Creative Global Cuisine and delivered to your door within reason. But if you're unable to participate at that level, there are levels where you can give less, or you can even give nothing, because as Donna says, Charter Oak believes in not turning anyone away due to lack of funds. So we encourage you to please consider joining us in whatever capacity you can for that virtual event on December 13th. And you've already spoilered this a little bit, but the building next door, we did announce it. Why don't you bring us up to speed on the capital campaign? Because that, I think, is a huge achievement of your 20 years. And it's it's been happening silently, and it's suddenly become a little bit more public, but what can we expect going forward?
Well, we bought the building next door, and we had tried about 7 times in the course of the 20 years to do that, and it never worked. And again, another Charter Oak miracle right after New Year's this last year, it all fell into place. We had originally been planning to build a building that would be adjacent to our building, because we just need more room. We have waiting lists for all of our classes for the kids, and we need more classrooms. So we were going to build this building, and then the stars aligned, and we were able to buy the building next door. And yep, there it is, to the left of Charter Oak. Thank you, Jacques. That's beautiful. And there I am. But you see me walking there? That's me. And that's my car. And so what's so unusual about it is that it's going to cost us $3 million less than building the building and give us more space. So cost us less, give us more. How often in life does that happen? And the day that we figured out that it was going to work is one of the greatest days of my life. I mean, I will remember it my whole life. Where I was, what I did, it was really kind of brings a tear to my eye even now. So we're going to be able to provide more classes and some other cool stuff, maybe some job training in the arts for people. It's going to really give us a lot more flexibility. And we feel like we're going to outgrow it very quickly, actually. But we're going to create a campus. It's going to be landscape between our original building and this building. This building is older than our building. Our original home is built, the synagogue was built in 1876. This was built in 1858 and was the home of the governor of Hartford at the time. I'm sorry, not the governor, the mayor of Hartford. There's really no governor of Hartford, is there? So it's a beautiful, lovely building, and the classrooms have fireplaces in them, and it's just delicious. So we're working with 2 different architects. One on we call it 25. That's the new building, 25 Charter Oak Avenue. And another working on 21 with us. The construction drawings are done. We're moving into design drawings. And the construction is going to start in the spring, probably in May. But in the meantime, there are things going on because for those of you who've been in the sanctuary, there are stained glass windows on either side. And 2 of them remained regular glass. They never created stained glass windows for them. And two donors stepped forward, and for the first time in, I don't know, at least 50 years, maybe 100 years, theoretically, by the end of December, we will have for the first time, all the stained glass windows on the sides of the sanctuary will be in place. So
nice.
Yeah, and we'll have some kind of ceremony and that will be the kickoff. And then we're also working on, there's a lot of Sherlock Holmes kinds of things going on with this, but when Ira Smith, who's the architect for 21, first came to the building, I don't know if you know this, Jacques, but there are two rosettes on the front of the building, and they're kind of, colonial blue. And we just thought they were always there. And he looked at it, he said, that doesn't look right. And he kind of pulled it's wood, and he pulled it out. They were stained glass windows that we guess the synagogue, it became a church after it's Temple Beth Israel's original home, and then it became Calvary Baptist Church. And at some point, somebody covered up these windows because they were in disrepair. And so they're going to be reconstituted, and we are going to dedicate them to Elliot Ginsberg's memory, and they will be lit from the back, and it'll be the first time that those windows have been in place for probably 100 years.
Now, anyone who's been in the building knows the treacherous stairs. What can we expect in terms of treacherous stairs and ADA and all that other stuff, and with the old building, with 21?
With 21. Well, because we have this new building, we're able to build a very short ramp right into the sanctuary. Right now, we have a ramp. It was built in the 70s, and you have to be an Olympian, to use it, because it's not pitched well, and it's really long and rambling. So now it's going to be a straight shot right into the sanctuary.
Mm-hmm.
And then we're going to have a ramp that wraps around the entire building so people can get in the side door too. So we don't need an elevator anymore. Originally we were going to put an elevator. We don't have to do that anymore because of having this building. It just has blessed us in so many ways.
And what changes are going to be happening in the sanctuary space?
We're going to change the risers around. They're going to be much more contemporary and much more graceful. We're going to build the bima out. It was originally much bigger than it is now, and we're going to build it back to its original size. It'll be easier to use it as a stage. We are hoping that people will come forward and help us with this, but the ark of the synagogue actually is the back wall of the bima. And Ira determined that it had originally, right now it's wood, that it had stained glass in it. So we want to put stained glass there and light that from the back. And there's also bricked over a window on the left-hand side as you're facing the beam on the left-hand side. And we want to open that up and then make that stained glass also. And then we have, I'll tell you something. So a lot of really cool stuff. So it's going to be like a jewel box. There'll be stained glass in the front, stained glass on the sides, and then there are stained glass windows in the back. Now, the stained glass windows in the back are actually on the front of the building. They're the back of the sanctuary, but they're on the front of the building. It took me until 2 years ago to realize that charter oak is in the building is in the shape of an open Torah. The two sides, they stick out. They're the rollers. The turrets are the top of the rollers. And then you have these 5 windows. They're the 5 books of Moses. And then the doors are shaped like this. They're the tablets of the law, the 10 Commandments. So we need some help with this, but we want to restore those 5 books of Moses windows. And so then when you're in the sanctuary, the sun will come through there. There'll be windows on the side. It'll be one of the most beautiful spaces in Hartford, just filled with stained glass.
Lovely. And of course, the gallery downstairs is going to continue, and it's going to change shape a bit, right? Yeah.
When you walk in, everybody who's been to Charter Oak knows that it's a very dark hallway, to say the least. It's dark and dingy. So that whole wall on your right is going to be glass, and you're going to be able to look in, and instead of the gallery being at the end of the hall, it's going to be the first room on your right. and you'll be able to look right in and see the art. And then at the other end will be the classrooms.
Gotcha.
So all of the bottom floor of Charter Oak is going to become classrooms because we're going to move our offices to the new building.
But dressing rooms are still going to be on the first floor?
Yeah.
Got it. And we should mention, I know he's in the talk, that we have a newish addition to the Charter Oak family with the gallery. Pierre, do you want to talk about him?
Yeah, Pierre Sylvain, we are so blessed. He is the director of our gallery, the curator of our gallery, and he has a whole year full of amazing exhibits in store for us. So we're very excited to welcome him into our circle.
Excellent. Well, speaking of welcoming people into our circle, should we open this up to a larger conversation?
Yeah, I would love that.
So what was that?
I want to just say that, when you think about a 20th anniversary, we could have had a party or whatever, but I wanted to do this. I wanted to have a conversation. I wanted to think with you about ideas, and because really there's a philosophy that underpins Charter Oak. It's not just a series of events. It's really about justice. It's really about, J.M. Barrie said, the guy who wrote Peter Pan, be kinder than necessary. It's really about creating a better world. And in some ways, I think that that's what we've really done, is create a world inside a world where everybody is loved and everybody is respected and everybody's given what they need to flourish. And it's a small model of, I think, what the greater world could be. And hopefully we put that energy out into the world. So I wanted to do this with you to think about ideas and think about the philosophy of Charter Oak. So yeah. This is great.
I have made it so that people can turn their cameras on if they'd like. You're welcome to change to gallery view if you want to see each other. Oh, there's Pierre. He's every bit as good looking as I remember. I'm not going to have everyone unmute unless they would like to ask a question of Donna, or sing her praises, or make a pledge for a large gift. Actually, will be anyone who is willing to make a pledge of a large gift can immediately move to the front of the Q&A line. But it's so good to see faces. So if folks have a question for Donna, or want to heap praises on her for her 20 years of work, feel free to unmute, or use at the little bottom, there's that reactions button. You could raise your hand, and we can acknowledge you, or however you want. I can't get everyone on one screen, so maybe I can. Let's see. Anyone want to have questions for Donna, or want to say, Fran? Oh, you got to unmute, Fran.
Hello.
There we go.
Hi, Franny.
Hello. I just want to say I've really enjoyed this program. Not you so much, Donna, but Jacques, it's been great listening to you. Really, what I just want to say is, Donna, you have created sacred community in the truest spirit of the phrase.
Oh, thank you, Franny. And your timing on that joke was so beautiful. I had to say that was really great. I'll be laughing about that later.
And for those who don't know, Fran has been doing yeoman's work on pulling together this gala on December 13th. And people who are gala co-chairs or committee members don't always get the love and attention they deserve. So we want to give you love and attention, Fran.
Yeah, it's amazing what Fran has done, and what Paul Kilman has done, and Barbara Veed, and all the people, Elise and Delmaris, all the people on the gala committee, because pivoting, I hate that word now, but pivoting from a live event to this has been, and in delivering meals, I mean, there are just so many moving parts. So bless your heart. Thank you. I'm surprised you're vertical. And by the way, somebody put in the chat, Tony Keller. Yes, Tony Keller. I want to pay tribute to him. He's one of my predecessors. And he really ran with the idea of Charter Oak becoming a multicultural arts center.
That was Benita who put that into the chat. So thank you, Benita. And you're also getting in the chat a shout out from Deborah Cantor saying Mazel Tov, you rock.
Oh, I love Deborah Cantor.
Who doesn't? Anyone else have questions for Donna or Sarah?
Hi,
Yeah.
Sarah.
Hey, so I'll just say I have been in awe of Donna and her compassion and her inspiration and her ability to inspire other people. And but now you've just blown my mind. Listening, I just feel I'm way more in awe of you. And Jacques, you did a fabulous job of asking questions. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. You know, I have to say, you know, I meant it when I said that Donna is so great with people, and that people naturally want to be generous with her. And I remember I had gone out to lunch with her, I don't know how many years ago, but she said, you and I are going to work together. I just know it. We're going to work together at some point. And I've been working with Charter Oak now for over 3 years, I believe.
Yes.
So she's I don't know if it's a hand of God or she's a prophet or she tricked me.
It wouldn't have been the first time.
I can speak on behalf of, I think, Susan and Lori when you say sometimes you're running to catch up with Donna. And she's always, the mind is going with millions of great ideas at any given moment. And she's one of those people who doesn't sit and dither when an idea comes to her. She wants to get it going right away. And that you know, that has been to the good of the organization, I think.
Thanks.
Bela, do you have your hand up?
Yeah, I have my hand up. Yeah, I don't, it's not really a question. Hi, Donna.
Hi, Bela.
That was what I wanted to say. No, but I had a question in the box, but she's been talking about it the whole time. I just really wanted her to talk about what you did, you know, how your being a rabbi has informed what you've done at Charter Oak, but it's informed everything you've done at Charter Oak. So I don't really think you have to answer that. But I did want to say that I see a lot of other friends from Poor Jewish Center here. And if you've been there 20 years, and we know how long you were at Poor Jewish Center before that, I can't believe that we've even been alive long enough to know you that long.
I know. Well, I gotta tell you something. My 6th grade English teacher is here tonight, Lynn Brett. And if I can put 2 sentences together in a coherent way, it's because of her. So she's known me 53 years. I just want to say.
Okay,
Which
so
Donna told me she was 36 before this started.
Well, I was, but during the course of your questions, I just aged.
There you go.
You aged me.
I see. Diane, do you have your hand up? Oh, you got to unmute yourself.
Diane, it's so good to see you. We miss you. Oh, you have to unmute. You know how to unmute?
I'm trying to ask her to unmute, but I don't know. You may have to put it in the chat, Diane.
For some reason we can't hear you. I want to hear your voice. Diane moved to Florida.
Oh my goodness.
Diane. Oh. Diane and her wife, Janet, put a brand new kitchen in Charter Oak for us because they came to the kitchen. They said, oh my God, this is horrible. How do you live this way? And so they did it. We have this great kitchen that we love because of that.
That's the nicest room in the building, that kitchen.
I know. It's certainly, yeah, it is. You want to put it in the chat, Diane? Read it in the chat. We'll read it. We'll is there anybody else?
Did she disappear? Oh, there she is.
Yeah.
Everyone moved around.
Anybody else have a question? While Diane writes it in the chat. Marvin.
Marvin, you need to unmute as well. Should I just unmute everybody?
Unmute everybody.
All right.
How
If
can I
there's
not
a
say
hand-
hello?
Hi.
So if many of you don't know already that Donna's had some influence outside of Hartford. And I've known Donna, well, because I don't know if I was her third or fourth president at PJC. I think 88 to 90. And I accepted the job. And when I accepted the job, I looked behind me to the folks that I knew as past presidents and wondered why they were so exhausted. And from 88 to 90, I understood what exhaustion really means. Because we went into full gear with homeless runs. This was Thompson Square Park. For those of you who don't know it, Needle, better known as Needle Park in Manhattan, Central Park. And it wasn't on a few occasions that Donna would give me 2 days. On a Tuesday, she would tell me, on Thursday, we need 300 sandwiches and we need sneakers to fit these people, and learned that we had to fit them, otherwise they wouldn't take the clothing. Quite an incredible learning experience. Now, I think a number of us at the time of her tenure at Port Jewish Center kind of flocked on her wing. Is that a good way to put it? And to this day, that's why Donna kind of walks in, with one shoulder a little bit higher than the other. It's an awkward way to express it. But one of the things that I also have said to Donna on numerous occasions is that I don't believe there's such thing as an original idea, that we pick up and we build from things that we've learned. So being in the stealing business that I am, I picked up on her mind, spirit, and passion. So having said that, I wanted to share with you that I picked up on Bots Pots and introduced it to Port Washington. And it's part of our Plant a Row for the Hungry program that started 11 years ago. And we have over 100 in Port Washington, painted by every imaginable kind of person, from the Helen Keller people, from autistic organizations, from children at every range of the community, seniors, et cetera, and a profound giving of art to our community. And I think that's been probably the single most greatest influence in terms of making people feel like it's dealing with hunger. There's just another issue that doesn't belong to them, it belongs to somebody else. It always seems to be somebody else's job. So the goal has been to try to embrace the entire community. And so I'd say without hesitation that it's a lot of the way I think Donna thinks about things. And we can all continue to learn from all of that. So thank you, my dear Donna.
Oh, Marv,
Thank you.
thank you. What you've done is just incredible. It's brilliant. I'm very touched by what you've done, moved by it.
Now, someone say something nice about me, Bonita.
I was gonna say something about Charter Oak, but Jacques, you're just like an amazing guy. You're just an amazing person, and I'm blessed to know you. But I'm gonna take it a little bit, and thank you for making me dance for money at the last gala. Just for those of you who don't know, I'm an improvising dancer, and Jacques at the last gala that we had 2 years ago, or whatever, was it 2 years ago, 3 years ago now?
I think it was 2 years ago.
And Donna, how do you like this? I said we had, like
I love that. I love that.
Anyway, about 2 seconds before Jacques was about to go on stage and ask everyone to donate big bucks at the gala, he turns to me at the table we were at eating and he says, "Do you want to improvise with me?" And I'm like, sure. So I get up on stage, with the stage, whatever it was called. And as he's asking for money, I am like, as you called it, interpretive dancing it. Anyway, that's not what I was going to say, but it was the first time in my, 53-year history as a dancer that I did try to make people pay at that moment, donate. Anyway, what I wanted to say was, as a dancer and being in the space at Charter Oak, countless times I've performed in that space so many times, both Donna through your auspices, since you've been there for the past 20 years, but even before that, Charter Oak was a space where a group of independent choreographers could come together, chip in with each other, and hire the space and perform there. There aren't a lot of dance spaces like that in Hartford. So even before you, when those of us we were called affiliated artists at Charter Oak. But what I want to say, Donna, to you, which I don't know if I have ever expressed to you, is every time I'm in that space, for me as a Jewish woman, I'm so grateful to have the opportunity to be there, because what it does is it lets me, I don't know if it's imagining or remembering all the funerals, all the weddings, all the bar mitzvahs, everything that went on in that space, all the praying. And it just, I can't say more than that, but thank you for that opportunity for me to be expressive about my work, my art in that sacred space. It's really, truly a blessing. And you make that happen.
Oh, thank you, Benita. I really consider what you do prayer, and it belongs there.
Sarah.
I want to just say aloud how extraordinary and visionary the Institute of Learning, I don't even know what exactly it's called, but I'm one of the many, many people who offer courses, the mini courses, and therefore have the extraordinary gift of being at those graduation ceremonies. And the sight of these people who, some of whom have never imagined that a graduation gown, a cap and gown could be on their physical bodies. And they're just glowing with joy and accomplishment and pride. And they have these beautiful hand-painted scarves that are made by Ed Janetta for each one to keep. Silk scarves, they each get up and speak aloud their truth. And I don't know how you came up with the vision for that, Donna, but it is transformative.
Thank you. I guess one of the things about the philosophy, and thank you, Sarah, and thank you for teaching, the students just love you. One of the things about the philosophy of Charter Oak is that, what are we on this earth for?
Mm-hmm.
Except to help each other. And the fact that we live in a time, maybe it always has been a time of so much, or at least in the time we remember, such inequity. And it's just like plants. You got to give plants good soil. You got to water them. You got to give them sunshine, and they grow. And that's how people are. And it's miraculous. And it's talking about miraculous. It's miraculous. And even a plant that's withered, you give it some water, you give it some love, and it will come back. And that's true for people. And the fact that we don't live in a world where that is just common sense, that we all need that, is astounding to me. It's simple. And that's what Charter Oak is about. And that's what our Center for Creative, our Bot Center for Creative Learning is. That's exactly what it is. It's just soil for people to grow in.
I think that would probably be a good good point to close on is that you have created a very fertile space for all kinds of spiritual and artistic and intellectual growth. And I think I say on behalf of the people who have been watching that these 20 years have been so special for. Oh, Pierre, did you have your hand up? You're muted, Pierre. Use sign language.
You know,
Okay, there we go.
Donna, I was gonna ask you a question. I mean, first, that was a learning for me to see so many beautiful things you did. I mean, I know you did a lot of amazing things, but just hear it, how you dedicate yourself, that's just like amazing to me. And one thing I was gonna ask you, because I think cause we are like teaching kids, and I feel we should have an exhibit for all of the student who's like learning art. We can have like a exhibit once a year.
Okay, I love it. I love it.
Because I feel if we are teaching kids and they see all the artists' work on the wall, I think that makes sense. Like once a year, they see that their art on the wall too. So where like we can invite their parents to see what they've been doing on the classroom. So I think that would be good if we can do that.
You run the gallery. I love it. I'm with you 100%. And by the way, Pierre is not just a brilliant curator and director of the gallery. He's a brilliant artist.
Oh,
he does
you.
mosaic work. He's a painter. He does sculpture. I mean, he does landscape design. He's a genius. So
and
I'm with
he
you.
taught me how to cook the perfect chicken breast without drying it out. So he is a person worth knowing. He's a person worth knowing.
Thank you.
All right. Well, we've run a little bit over our time here, but I want to again thank everyone, and I think we can all give a round of applause and snaps to Donna. And I know that she will be delighted if you'll join us in whatever capacity you can on December 13th. But there are a number of great events between now and then too, where I'm sure she would love to have you participate. So thank you all for being a part of tonight's conversation.
Thank you. Bless you all. Thank you so much for all your support and your love. You made all of this happen. Thank you.
Good night.